1. Okay, we're live. Okay, awesome. Wow, it worked. That's the magic of the technology. So, all right, so I'll introduce you here. Matt Cooke. He's a coacher and speaker, and he's a course creator and a 500-hour yoga instructor. He helps his clients get really energized. He's a really, really, really great guy. He's Matt Cooke, coach and course creator, and a speaker coach. Matt Cooke, he's gonna share about his journey. Matt Cooke, he's a really great guy. All right. I hope we have some dope people on here. We got Matt Cooke here. He is like I said in the song, he's a course creator, he's a coach, he's a speaker, a yoga instructor, neuroscience-based movement expert. He's worked with hundreds of world's top neuroscientists, thought leaders, conscious business owners, productivity experts, and coaches. He's recently at Alex Moscow's event for Congruent Coach, featured in HuffPost, Thrive Global, Mind, Body, Green, and the Elephant Journal. He's here today. He's going to share his journey, his vision, some science-based practical tactics for you to help you move in life with ease and joy. So thanks so much for being here, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Michael, I don't think I've ever had a better intro. That just brought so much joy to my heart. Thank you for that.
Oh, wow. Dude, thank you. I'm so glad. And then, yeah.
Anytime you have the guitar, you just really, there's nothing.
I knew I would surprise you. I kept it down here under the camera. I whipped it out. Oh, it was.
I had no idea.
I saw it on your face. I was like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. I don't know if there's anyone on. Oh, we got 5 people, 3 people. Nice, cool. So welcome. If you're here, drop a hashtag Matt T Cooke in the comments. Okay, and then I'll put this up on the screen here. If you want to find out more about Matt, you can go to MatthewTCook.com. So that's super awesome. So Matt, I would love for you to just share a little bit about how you got into coaching and kind of like where you are now and maybe a little bit in between.
That's awesome, dude. Well, Michael, first off, you're just absolutely extraordinary, my friend. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you.
This is so fun. And I love your is that
it's like
Eastern Oriental. Yeah, I love that. What brought me to this place where I am today? Well, so I grew up in a household, Michael, with a sister with borderline personality disorder, with mental illness, and so what that essentially is a really dysregulated nervous system. So I grew up around a sister that didn't necessarily have a lot of boundaries, wasn't great at forming relationships, social connection. And she's an older sister. So as you can imagine, being an impressionable little kid, I picked up on that and was very confused and very unclear of how to form social bonds. But more than that, how to really focus, how to be present with people. So you fast forward to high school, and I was an Adderall popping junkie in order to focus, and I think that was, so that's really, I think the real like foundation of what brought me to what I do today. So fast forward to, I ended up working in my 20s at a startup. And it was beautiful, actually. It was a really cool company. We were building like the Netflix for optimal living, so for self-development, which I think you and I discussed on our phone call.
Yeah.
And super, super cool company. I was working like 70-hour work weeks to try to make the thing happen. And I know so much of today in the tech industry, there's such an emphasis on the hustle and the grind and just like, crushing it. And Gary Vaynerchuk style, and and I think there's so much validity to a lot of that stuff. There's my roommate Trini passing by, and but I'll say it's not right for everybody. And I think so much of the popping stimulants and sleepless nights and a lot of these things come from a feeling of inadequacy, from a feeling of I'm not enough, I can't do enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not smart enough, all of these things. And so that was so much of what my experience was growing up, because I felt like there was like this disconnect, like I wasn't able to quite connect with the other kids again because the sister situation, and then I also wasn't able to connect to my work. So it was like, even though I was highly creative, I stamped it down with a lot of these stimulants and other things. So I ended up burning out at around 24. My adrenals working at the startup just completely shut down. And I remember being on a couch, and I had just gotten in like the 5th fight of the week with my girlfriend at the time, and I could barely get up off the couch. And because I realized I was like, well, I really effed that up, so like I need to go get her some flowers. So I was literally like about to get up, and I just physically couldn't. And I remember even looking then at my Chase bank app account and seeing that I had $4.82 in my account. And it was such a horrible feeling, to know that physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, I was completely shot, because I was also, not only was I working a ton, but I was also spending a ton to try to live some sort of lifestyle, right? That I thought, that's what you're supposed to do. And so that was when I started going down the rabbit hole of neuroscience and movement, and really fully understanding the process of what it is that makes us tick. And that's when I came to the nervous system. That's when I really figured out so much of the work that I do today, which is helping anxious, overwhelmed entrepreneurs really master their energy and their attention, and really their creativity, so they can innovate and really create powerful products and services and really make an impact. So is that helpful? Is that kind of the start we were maybe looking for? I don't know.
Dude, that's exactly the start. Thank you for sharing so openly about what you were facing and how you ended up here.
Thanks, man.
Now that we are here in the present, in this zone of helping people be energized and living their full life, I guess my first question for you is like, what are your absolute essentials to living a fulfilled life for yourself? And then we can talk about maybe for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question, man. So I think the biggest thing, so I have a 10-week course that I teach called the Aligned Performance Academy. And essentially what we're looking at with that is that everyone has a balance point. Everyone has a point that for them really, really works in balancing fulfillment and joy and pleasure and just the joie de vivre of life, and productivity and performance. And so to me, that's what aligned is. Aligned is lining up our mind, our body, our heart, I guess you could say, and our actions all lined up into one. And so if I'm able to do that, I'm going to have a really fulfilling and productive life. And so what was the question again?
Yeah.
There was something to that.
That's a fantastic explanation.
And so, no, actually, I just remembered. Thank you.
Okay.
And so I would say that probably like the biggest thing that I'm working actively with my clients on is helping them find that balance point. What is that for them? And what I find typically, especially in 2020, is that most of us have so much going on. So much going on that it's really difficult to actually find what balance looks like. And so the way that I go about doing that is I have everyone do what I call an agreements inventory. So we basically take a look at what are all of the things that I am agreeing to in my life, across all domains of life. So I talk about personal and professional. So it's going to be obviously in work. It's going to be in my physical body, in my emotional body, in my mental, intellectual, career, all of these things. What's up, Dylan? I'm seeing a hello from Dylan Newman. That's exciting. So,
Dylan.
Yeah.
Dylan owns a pizza bus. It's kind of like a food truck, but more amazing. So thanks for being here, Dylan.
Yeah, Dylan, what a cool thing to own and run. I love that. I'm excited to hear more about that. Yeah, that's cool. You know some cool people, Michael. I just love this, man. This is
I'm just
great.
trying to connect with the good people. That's why,
The good people.
So,
That's
okay,
great.
sorry.
Yeah.
Go. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you for
No,
saying
it's
hi. I had
that's cool.
actually, I have some notes over here, and I actually have them covering the chat, and so I didn't actually see that. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I love that Dylan's here. Yeah, and so I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that we find. So I have everybody do. So first off, you write all your agreements, and so everyone could go ahead and do this on
Can
their own.
could you give like an example of like what an agreement is, or is that exactly what you were about to
Yes.
do?
No. Yeah. So an agreement. No, that's a great question. So an agreement is something, isn't it? Is essentially like a verbal or nonverbal contract that I make with either myself or with somebody else. So when I say I'm going to get that report to you by Tuesday, that's an agreement that we make. And there's
Hmm.
really three things that I can do with every agreement. I can either keep it, I can either I can not keep it. I can just not do that agreement. Or the third thing that most people don't realize is an option, because right, we see this very black and white. It's like either you did it or you didn't do it. The other option is that we can renegotiate our
Hmm.
agreements, which actually, in many, many cases, is the most aligned thing for everyone. Because a lot of times, if I'm not holding up to an agreement, there's something going on some unconscious level that's not allowing me to do that. And really, that's not my job to necessarily dig into that. That's you hire support and coaches and things for that. But what's more important for me to realize is that for some odd reason, I'm not doing that. And so we need to renegotiate some sort of agreement so that the work gets done, or whatever the thing is gets
Yeah.
done. So if I'm not able to do it, I want you to get it done, right? So we need to figure out a situation where it can get done, whether that is me or that's it being delegated off to somebody else or whatever that may be. And that's not to shirk responsibility. That's just to say that
No, you're taking.
some
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, right,
You're
exactly,
taking responsibility for it in a different way. It's
in a
like,
very different way.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
I understand completely. I don't know if you've done any work with Landmark.
Landmark's wonderful. I have not, but
Okay.
all of my friends have. Yeah,
Okay.
so I know a lot
So
about Landmark.
in there, there's like a very similar principle of like honoring your word and like so you
Yeah,
can either keep your word, you can like basically say you're not going to do it, or you can like honor your word and say, hey, this isn't done now. How can we create some kind of structure to have it be
yeah.
done? So
Bingo,
very
bingo.
interesting.
So then where we get to add on to that, this is the fun part. Oh, and I should say, so that's an agreement between you and I. An agreement with myself, though, could be I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and go to the gym. And
Mm,
I may or may not actually be keeping up with that. And if I'm not keeping my word, as we're saying, or keeping that agreement, I need to renegotiate that, because what's happening is it's actually draining energy from me to say that I'm going to be doing that. And it's also, I'm lowering my own self respect, my own self predictability, like my ability to predict with certainty that something's going to happen. Self trust, all of these things are going to go down. Self confidence, and it's the same with other people when we make agreements and don't keep them, or don't renegotiate them. So the thing with that, then, to take it one step further, is then I also like to go on a scale of 1 to 100. So we'll say that we have 100. Michael has 100 energy units that he can use across
mm,
all domains of his life. And so then I have everybody mark out for energy expenditure. So of all the
mm.
agreements that I have in my life, where out of my 100 points am I using that energy? So I maybe put 40 points in my working career, and maybe there's 30 in my physical health, and maybe there's 20. So you get to manage that and really see where that's sitting. So energy expenditure. And then the last piece to this is impact. So impact on others. So energy expenditure, meaning what I'm giving out, and then how its impact is how it's landing with the other people in my life, whether that be my clients or my friends or family or whatever it is. How is it actually impacting them? And again, I do this on a 100-point scale. It's very subjective, obviously, but it
Yeah.
illustrates a really powerful point, because what ends up happening a lot of times, and if you want to make it even crazier, it's throwing income in there too.
I want to make it
So
crazier for sure.
make it crazy is just to throw an income. So you
Yeah.
just throw an income there as a variable as well. So one of the times that I did this with one of my clients on a VIP day, he was noticing I think it was a client where he was making, it was very, very minimal. I think he was making like 2,000 or 2,500 a month from this particular client, and was putting about 40% of his energy expenditure, 40 energy points, week after week into this client. And again, he was making like $2,000 a month from this guy. And the impact for it as well was like 10 in comparison to the other parts of his life, the other 90 points of impact that he had. So exactly right. So there's this moment of like, wait a second, this is not actually a valuable agreement to anybody. Like, it's just hurting me. It's taking away all of my energy and my time. And more than that, it's not having an impact, and I'm not making any good money doing it. So it's really, I'm just wasting my energy, is really what he came to. And so it was a really powerful moment for him to recognize that. So if anyone's interested, I'm super happy to, maybe I can drop a link or something to an agreements exercise or something. But
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I would say. And again, this is where the alignment process starts to happen. So it's a very slow process of starting to wean down what are my highest priorities, what are the things that really bring me the greatest joy, pleasure, fulfillment, productivity, performance, impact.
Wow, yeah. That's amazing. How often?
So that's like a thing.
That's definitely a thing. It's a whole process. How often do you do that for yourself, like on
a
regular basis, or?
I mean, yeah, you could get really anal about it. You could do it every week, I guess, which I think actually, if anything, would, I jokingly say anal about it, but I guess that would actually probably just make the process even simpler. I typically do it every 3 months.
Okay.
So, cool. Yeah. So every 3 months, I'm usually diving in and checking in, like, in these last 3 months, where have we been? In these last 90 days, where have I been? What agreements am I agreeing to? And, yeah, and how's that affecting everything in my life? Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. I have a question for you about that.
Hit me with it.
And anyone watching in the future, you can drop a hashtag Matt Cooke, and you can find out more about Mathew at MathewTCook.com. It's scrolling across the screen right now, so you should be able to see it. But just want to let everyone know. You can also find him on Facebook, I'm sure. But Mathew Cooke, great coach, great high performance, amazing person. So, okay. So about your agreements and your impact for you, what is like an activity that brings you the most impact to people and to your life?
That's great. For me, it's speaking. And I do a really cool process, and this kind of allows us to sort of transition into the other work that I do. So I teach a process called body-based breakthrough. And so I get to teach this I typically teach this to tech companies. I've done this at real estate events. I've done this at chiropractor offices. I've done this at co-working spaces. I've done it across, like, everywhere, essentially. The one place, ironically, I try to keep it out of is actually yoga studios. And I'll explain more in a moment. So the process on the outside looks a little bit like yoga. It looks a little bit like movement, and I've been teaching yoga for over a decade. So what the process is, though, is we essentially use our bodies as a vehicle for our most innovative and creative thinking. So it's actually, and I'll explain more in a moment, it's actually the process that I do in body-based breakthrough is essentially a mind exercise that we're using our body to get the juices flowing. So Ernest Hemingway, Dorothy Day, Mark Twain, Carl Jung, like some of the most famous people of all time were very famous for walking. And what they would do is they would actually get their best ideas on walks. And so I essentially created this formula. Goodness, there's so many people I could name here that it's been helpful for through the ages, and I've just sort of like tagged on to this idea and I've run with it. But essentially, what happens is when we are sitting at our desks, trying to focus on a problem. In fact, they did typey. They did a study in 2000 and I want to say it was 2011 in the Journal of Human Behavior in Graphic Design. And they found out that 16% of people, 16% get their best ideas at work. 16%, wow. That's it. So everyone else like is getting their greatest ideas everywhere else. Somewhere else. And so, like, where is that? And I want you to just think, for everyone watching, and I'll point this question to you, Michael, like, where do you get your best ideas? And there's no right or wrong answer here. But just where do you typically get your best ideas?
Yeah. Best ideas. I think my best ideas personally come from talking with other people.
Yeah.
Like usually, like I'll be talking to someone like yourself or just really anyone, and they'll tell me about something that they're doing or a book that they read and some little thing that they found from that. And then I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I have the best idea about that. You
That's
know,
great. I
that's
love that.
usually, or like just when so I've been working on this kind of new method of outreach for people. And it came up when I was just like really bored of sending just plain old messages to people like, hey, good to connect with you, man. You know? Um, and I started singing these voice messages to people. And
Which
I
you did
started,
for me,
yeah,
and it totally blew my mind. Yeah.
yeah. And so, but so that came out of like wanting to truly connect with people, but not have it be so boring, right?
Yeah.
But it's like things like that. Just, I think for me, it happens when I'm having conversations with people.
Yeah. And it sounds like, and also like having fun, like just being really playful. And
That's
yeah, that's
that,
beautiful.
that's my whole
So
thing now. Tribe of
that's
fun.
your whole thing. Tribe of fun, dude. Yeah. And I actually imagine that everybody that's part of your tribe is absolutely in the same boat. So what we find is that people have their best ideas on walks, in the shower, on the toilet, in the car, on a run, in meditation, in yoga. Go. What are you
I
gonna say?
I was walking when I had the idea. Like
Yeah. I love that.
proof is in the pudding right there.
Proof is in the pudding. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so what we find though is there's a certain brainwave state that's happening. This is where the neuroscience comes in. So there's a certain brainwave state that's happening. When you're in like typical day-to-day life, there's something that's called beta. And this is where it's like, I gotta grab avocados. Oh, I have to go walk the dog. Oh, I have to like go get a hamburger, whatever. I don't know what it is that people do. Right. That's beta. And that's actually what you and I are both generally in right now. And then what comes underneath that is a brainwave state called alpha. And then from there you go down into theta and then
Mhm.
delta. The names aren't so much important, but what's important to know is that alpha and theta are the two brainwaves, specifically these brainwave states that the deepest meditators, action sports athletes, artists, like musicians, like this is the brainwave state that the most creative people on the planet get into. And the interesting thing is that when we're at work, it's a very cerebral process. It's a very beta process. It's right up here, up at the top, where it's this very fast pace, and there's not a lot of room for spacious thinking, right? And for new thoughts to sort of drop into our awareness. So what's interesting is it's when you're on walks that you think about the, tribe of fun. It's and we think of all of, again, Ernest Hemingway, when he was writing a book and he couldn't quite figure out what the next pages were going to be about, he would go on
You go for
walks.
a walk. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't
Leonardo da
know
Vinci did the same thing. Yeah, yeah. Thomas Edison, in fact, and this is what actually tipped me off to this process that I now teach. So Thomas Edison would do this thing where he would hold two metal ball bearings in his hand. And what most people don't know about Thomas Edison is, yes, the inventor of the light bulb, allegedly. And you could say Tesla. You could
shots
say
fired.
Tesla, maybe. A little debate there.
Okay.
But he had over 1,000 patents,
Yeah.
which most people don't, not everybody really knows that. And so what's interesting is he had an entire factory of workers. And so midday, usually, he would go down and he would essentially go into his office in the back, and he would sit in his office chair. It was one of those squeaky old metal ones. And he had this big wooden mahogany desk in front of him. And what he would do is he would open up his journal in front of him, and he would write down the problem that he was focusing on, the creative problem that he couldn't quite like get the answer to. He would write it down in his journal. And then what he would do is he would hold these two metal ball bearings and he would drift off towards sleep with this creative problem in the back of his mind. And what's interesting is there's a certain point in our sleep cycle where our muscles start to go limp, and he would essentially drop these metal ball bearings to the floor. And that was his alarm clock. They'd crash at the floor. He would immediately wake up with his creative solution to his problem. And
Wow.
what's so powerful about that, right, is that we're using the power of the unconscious mind, of our nervous system. So Another just like fun fact, our nervous system receives 12 million stimuli per second. In our conscious brain, yes.
Per second?
Per second? Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so our nervous system is picking up so much information around us all the time and calculating, making these like little micro calculations that are shifting the way that our cells are perceiving and acting in the world. Yeah, castanets, whatever they're called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's your brain castanets.
Absolutely. Whereas, and so this is the fun part though, to tag onto that. So 12 million, and then our conscious brain can only process 40 bits per second. 12 million, 40 bits. 12 million, 40. 12 million. There's a lot that we're leaving on the table. There's a lot of information that we're not privy to. So what's happening essentially when Thomas Edison goes down for a nap is he is starting to lean back into that encyclopedia of information that his body essentially already knows the answers to. So all the things that he can't seem to quite figure out is like his body's like, yeah, I got this. It's like, I know the answer. Don't worry. Like, just go to sleep and we'll give it to you. Yeah. And so that's what happened. And so when we're in that state between beta coming down into alpha, theta, delta, is this like very cool, like the veil is very thin between consciousness and unconsciousness. And so there can be a little bit of conversation that happens. I mean, we've all experienced this when we're dreaming and we're like in and out of wakefulness, right? And that's when you experience this. And sometimes like crazy ideas come to mind. So John Lennon wrote the song Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
Paul McCartney.
Now it looks as though they're here to stay.
Right.
What's that?
Paul McCartney, right?
Paul McCartney.
Is what you meant.
I said John Lennon. I meant Paul McCartney.
But he thought of it in his dreams. He woke up and he scrambled eggs.
There we go. And he just wrote that thing down. Yeah. So Mr. Paul McCartney. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the process. So that's what I do. So I'll actually go into organizations. It's so much fun. And we get to basically jam out on like, what are your biggest issues right now? And like, let's do a little bit of yoga asana, a little bit of movement. But again, I don't even like to call it yoga because I feel like sometimes that comes with other thoughts and things. So it's like, we're going to do some simple movement and we're going to focus on what's actually not going well, ironically enough. And then that's where all of our solutions come from. But it's just simply by moving and breathing and just focusing on like, inhale, lift your left arm, exhale, float it, and it's like very simple stuff.
But it kind of distracts the conscious brain and allows them to sit into their body feelings and their body mind.
Bingo.
Gotcha.
Michael,
that's awesome.
Will you? You're welcome to just be one of my head trainers then if you want.
Oh my god, I would love that. Process. I would love that.
So yeah,
wow.
That's it.
Okay.
That's another thing that I do just for fun, But that's you asked what's the number one. I'm remembering here. You said what's the number one agreement, or like the most essentially like highest leveraged agreement for you, or the most impactful agreement.
Most impactful agreement.
And for me, it's getting to do that process. So when I do that with groups of people, sometimes upwards of 300 to 500 people in a room, that is when I have the most fun. And I feel like that makes the most impact. And I feel like people just like have a genuinely good time. I've had people tell me that they like feel like they floated away to other dimensions and like crazy, crazy stuff. But then they come back to Earth and they're like, I have the ideas that I needed.
Wow. So, that's super impactful and powerful. That's, thank you for being a huge contribution to people in that way. You're amazing.
Michael. You're amazing. I don't play the guitar for intros. That was so cool.
I'm so glad, I'll never be able to surprise someone again, because they'll know, but maybe I'll switch it up. I'll have like a didgeridoo next time. Castanets, yes. Okay, awesome. Let's see.
You're like, I don't know where to go to that. That was just a lot of stuff.
Well, there's so much. I have a bunch of things, but I want to make sure that's really, so I was taking a look at your website, MathewTCooke.com, for anyone watching that wants to find out more about Mathew and how to work with him and his process. And it talks a lot about getting people into, I think this kind of works into similarly, but it talks about getting people into their rhythm and their real like daily rhythm. And so 2 questions, two-parter. what is your rhythm? Like, what does that actually look like in your everyday life? And then how would someone discover their rhythm?
That's
And
so
like,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. So I do have a really simple process that I take people through. And actually, right now I'm working on like a $97 product to help people with this. But essentially, there is a series of questions that I can ask people. But the cool thing is it's instead of so a lot of personal development is a very top down approach. It's very like you need to wake up at 5 a.m. because everyone that wakes up at 5 a.m. is the most productive human on the planet. And the thing is, that's absolutely categorically not true. Some of the most prolific writers of all time woke up at like 2 in the afternoon. Like it
Hmm.
was like crazy things. But the thing is like that's just a made up idea, and like maybe there's some cool science to support it, but that does not mean it's true for every single person. So cookie cutter approaches, like that's just
Cut
we're
'em.
at the end of that. Cut them. We're at the end of that road, you know. So like I like to look at historically how does your body function? And so I have a lot of questions that I'll ask people around when they're most productive and creative. And like, that's when I'm going to put my highest priority items. So if I'm in a season of my life where like, let's say I'm single and I'm looking for love and I got plenty of cash in the bank, you know, and I'm like not worried about business at all and like everything's chugging along there. I'm going to take my most productive, creative, enlightening hours and focus that time on creating dates, on creating love, on creating relationship, whatever. And vice versa. I give that example first because most people would just obviously imagine immediately like, well, that's when I'm going to use my business, you know, my
Right.
business time.
But
And
that's
that
not
could be
always,
it too.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's exactly. So it's just
Whatever
what
is
is
right
your
for them at that time in their
there you
life,
go.
that's the right rhythm for them.
Yeah. So for instance, I had a client, Jamin, who I just adore. Actually, I need to contact Jamin. Jamin, if you're watching, let's connect. I haven't spoken to him in about a year now, but he was
Jamin,
a
give
client.
Matt
Jamin,
a call. Come
hit
on.
me up, Jamin.
I'll have to tag him
Anyways,
after.
yeah, we'll have
He'll
to
be
tag
like,
him.
who the heck is this guy, Michael Rosenberg? I don't get it.
Michael.
Anyway,
I
sorry.
don't. So no, so Jamin's super cool. He was a client for quite some time, and I just absolutely adore the guy. He literally writes theme songs. He writes and performs theme songs and records them for 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. So for instance, when Tony Robbins comes up onto stage, it's
Hmm.
not Jamin didn't write Tony Robbins' song, but essentially like, you know, it's kind of like when a baseball player walks up to the
Yeah.
plate and they have their song playing. It's like so he creates a song in the genre with the words and the type of singer that you want that's going to get you into a specific state to do the best
Hmm.
work that you can do.
That's cool.
Super cool
Super
stuff.
cool.
Super cool stuff. And he'll work on these songs for like literally months to get the person like the absolute like perfect. Anyways,
Right.
so what he did is he was working 8 hour work days because that's what you do. You work 8 hour work days because 9 to 5. That's how you should. So
What's
and
5 o'clock?
so
Let's leave.
it's time to get up and leave. I guess I should probably go home and take a bath and drink some wine or something. Like I don't know what people do at 5 o'clock. But what Jaina does now through our work together, and again, this is not rocket science. It was we just started figuring out like when is he actually most productive. Again, I would never recommend this to anybody because everyone has a different
Everyone's
cycle and
different.
rhythm. But this is really illustrative. So he would go to bed at 10 p.m. He would wake up at 3 a.m. and he would work from 3 to 6 a.m. So if we're counting so far, that's 3 hours of work thus far. He
Yeah.
would go back to bed from 6 to 10 a.m. I'm not even kidding. This is the guy. And then he would, so essentially from 10 to 10, he was in bed or in the middle of a creative process for about 3 hours in the middle there. And then he would wake up and do his day, and then he would do an hour of calls later in the day. So we effectively cut his day in half from 8 hours to 4 hours. And then with that, he said he was 4 times more productive in that time because, again, it was when he was most creative and productive for him
Wow.
with his biology.
For him, for his whatever. For what he's
Yeah,
up to.
for what he's up to and what he's doing in the world. So if you find that you are a if you find that you're a night owl, like amen and more power to you. I think in personal development for some weird reason night owls are like really shamed. And I don't know why, but like for a lot of people, like one of my clients Tim, you as well, Michael? You're a
Yeah.
night owl?
Night
Cool.
owl. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's freaking great. One of my clients, Tim, does his best work after like 11 p.m. at night. He usually works until like 4 or 5 in the morning and then goes to bed and wakes up at, like 8, 9, 10, 11. And he probably, there's some specific time in there, but it's later in the morning. Like he's not trying to do the 4 or 5 a.m. club thing. He's not trying to meditate for an hour at 3 in the morning. He's trying to do what's actually best given his biology and his history. That's what are the results that I've been shown have proven effective for me in the past, because it's most likely it's going to be the same in the future. So I like to do that because I think, and the cool thing is, like, I feel like once people start to find their rhythms and we get back to like, oh, this is how I'm built, then we can start to layer on some cool things. So once we've really maximized your full biology's potential, then we can start to like play it with some cool ideas. But I think for me, if somebody's nervous system is totally out of whack and totally dysregulated, and they're on weird sleep cycles, they're drinking lots of soda and popping a bunch of stimulants and stuff, to try to then tell their system that's already in total chaos to try to like focus and like perform at the highest by like doing these 10 proven principles that science and everybody else says you should do, that's not going to work. It's not sustainable, and in fact I think it's foolish, and I think it's even unethical, because again, that could put somebody into even further of a hole.
Right. And then
because
also,
again, if they're already all over the place. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, like, also, then they have all these agreements that are just not in line with their true self and their vision.
Bam.
And so it just crumbles, because every time they don't execute on the agreement that they actually don't agree with, they just are like all out of whack. So it makes a lot of sense.
Dude, you're so perceptive, Michael. I really appreciate that. Because honestly, nobody's actually put that together on an interview ever before. And you're absolutely correct. That's totally the link right there. Is they're going to start making agreements that their biology can't keep up with. Maybe their mind can do that. Their mind can say, yeah, no, I mean, I understand. That makes sense. I mean, this guy that has a power dynamic where he's above me, like, of course I'll listen to him. This is the new religion, personal development. But the body is not necessarily going to get on board with that. And so that's the thing for me, is like, yeah, we can do a bunch of cool adjustments, and like if you want to biohack and all that cool stuff, that's cool. But like, let's just get down to the fundamental, simplest, basic things. And then from there we can build off of that. But I think a lot of people come in with a really out of whack foundation. If you're a super high performer and you're already crushing it, and you're, I don't know, whatever, like working 20 or 30-hour work weeks, and you have tons of vitality and energy, and it's really obvious to everyone around you, then we can start adding like a bunch of cool shit to it.
And there's again, hyper speed, but like until you're even going at like automatic, like on the highway, like it's not going to be great.
Yeah. And so when I'm working with a client that has any level of depression or anxiety or overwhelm, or like, I just can't seem to like do things that I'm saying I'm going to do, it's like, I'm not just going to yell at you and tell you you need more discipline. I'm going to say, well, okay, cool. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's like see what you're doing, and let's figure out like where the holes are right now. And then let's fill in those holes. Go ahead. What were you
I was going to say, for me, like in my journey, what I've been finding over the past few months is that I was just totally in the wrong lane. Like I kept on trying to do the marketing agency as like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then as I've been working with a coach, I've been realizing more and more, it's just like, oh no, like I'm actually meant to be having conversations with people and just like connecting great people together, and just like pooling information and working with people, because that's what gives me energy, and just having fun. And like so these past few months, I've just been like, I'm more vitalized, and I'm still doing the marketing agency. I still have a few clients, but I'm doing the work whenever I feel it's like good. And then it just like, somehow I'm not stressed out, and the work just ends up getting done. But I'm not like cramming to try and like have these things happen. It's like for like an hour and a half, like I'll like, oh yeah, this feels like a really good time. Like I'll put it in my calendar, but like I'll work for like an hour and a half, and instead of trying to just like power through and be like, yeah, I'm going to keep going. They're like, "Ah, you know what? I'm pretty tired now. I'm going to take a nap." And then I do
Yes.
that. And then later in the
Yeah.
evening, I'm like, oh, now's a good time for me to like finish up some of that like technical work that I just kind of, that I'm gonna get to do. And
Yeah.
so it's just been like just feeling my body and my mind
So
when
good.
I'm not energized, it's not good, it's not bad. It's just, oh, I'm not super energized about this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all have that's so good, Michael. There's so many things that came to my mind as you were describing that, and it's a beautiful, like, just allegory to, like, that's absolutely how this works, and I'm so glad to hear you're finding so much joy and pleasure in living that more aligned lifestyle. That's just awesome. And I'll say with circadian rhythms, like it's actually the way you even described it. It sounded like around 2 or 3 in the afternoon kind of thing. Is like
That's
noon to three.
exactly when I get like 2 or 3. I'm like pretty much after 3 o'clock, between 3 and 5. I'm usually like spent. Like I
Yep.
usually like need a nap, need to eat, like
Yep.
just need to relax, play some guitar, like,
Yeah.
and it's not or like what I find in that time is like following up with people and talking
Yeah.
to people. That's a great
Brilliant.
time because like mentally I'm tired, but I love having
Mhm.
conversations with people. And so like
So
that's
good.
when like my like follow up time is in my calendar because like that's actually an activity that's beginning to give me energy as opposed to like take it
Yes.
away. So
Yeah, so bingo on that. Yeah, so with our circadian rhythms, for most people that when they try to power through that or eat some sugar or drink a soda or whatever or pop a stimulant, like they're fighting their biological urge to actually come down a little bit. So our nervous system goes in this wave throughout the day. And that is for virtually everybody. It's like that midday, like slight down. It's a deactivation, yeah. So, like, to take a nap is actually brilliant because what it does is it naturally recharges you so that you can sustainably keep working at your absolute peak when you are working. So, the biggest thing that I'm always looking for with my clients is I'm always talking about we want consistent quality, not consistent quality versus trying to think of
consistent
it.
action, like
No, verse
consistent,
verse intense quantity. So
mm,
consistent quality. So it's consistency versus intensity. We prefer consistency versus intensity, obviously, but then also quality over quantity. So I think a lot of people just kind of do this like manic, just like shooting from the hip. Just if I just spray at everything, hopefully I'll hit something. Versus this really quality spending time with presence, really focusing on what I'm doing and just doing that consistently. And then, spending time away from it, getting some time away, which again, there's some cool science on that. It's called undirected attention versus directed attention. And then coming back into directed attention. And there's this like really beautiful, smooth wave that creates sustainability over time. And that's the thing that so many people are lacking because we think that I call this computer consciousness. We all think, you are the sum of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. A lot of us find that we spend most of our times with our computers and with our phones. And so we think that we have to be on all the time, like our phones are. It's just
mm,
simply not true. Your phone is not a mammal. It doesn't work like that.
what?
What? Right? And so we need to trust that, like, yeah, that like it's really healthy and okay to have downtime.
That's
Um,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I've been. That's kind of in my development of this coaching program that I was telling you about. It's like
Yeah.
I'm really trying to have people schedule in the fun first. Schedule in time to be relaxed, to watch Netflix, to do whatever it is that like just lets them relax and have fun and enjoy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then you can fit in the other stuff. It fits in.
Yeah.
And then Tim
Amen.
right here, he's a fantastic owner of a facility in Tennessee. He's caffeine and nicotine supplements, 62. Only way I get the performance I need. Any suggestions?
Yeah.
So
That's a great question. I love that. Which, by the way, Tim, being 62 has nothing to do with it. So it certainly isn't an age thing. One of the things I would say on this is what we said earlier, Tim, which you may have just jumped on. So one of the things that I would mention is taking a look at your natural daily rhythms. So if we were to just imagine that you didn't use nicotine or caffeine, what would be your natural rhythms? Meaning, when are you most productive outside of those items, outside of using those supplements? And I'm seeing mentally. I'm not sure what the mentally came from. Well, can you give some more cues in on that, Tim? But I would say, and keep using those things as you need right now. But the thing that we're trying to do is get you closer. So if we're like veered off path, we're just trying to get you a little bit closer consistently, day after day, towards a more aligned path for you, Tim, where you're, and again, aligned as if you want, that's if you want that. But for me, my intention is always, where can I be the most natural, the most organic version of myself? And so where I don't need any supplements to boost my performance. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think maybe when he said mentally, I guess.
Oh, mental performance, is that what he said?
Like maybe mental performance, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that could be a deeper conversation, Tim. I would love to connect with you deeper to learn a little bit more about you, but I would say that those are probably my biggest.
Yeah,
physically I'm good. Okay, yeah, so mentally, so I would just check in, like, when are you typically at your absolute peak, and see if you can. So there is, if you're familiar, Michael and Tim, with Tim Ferriss, and his work, he mentions in one of his books something called the Parkinson's law, which essentially is that a project or assignment stretches to the amount of time that you allot it. So one of the things that I used to play with is that I would only give myself an hour a day to work. And I'm not kidding. And I actually was insanely productive. I started to add on more things over time just for fun, because I wanted to keep improving and growing my business and doing the things. But I wanted to see if I could do everything in 1 hour. And the whole rest of the day, I had other things planned that were more just fun in nature. And so the crazy thing, though, is when I was doing that same type of assignment in a 4 hour period, because I was like, well, I was kind of give myself 4 hours to do it. It took 4 hours, right? It's just like that homework assignment, where your teacher says you have 2 weeks to do it versus it's due tomorrow. You're going to do it by tomorrow, even if it's the same assignment. Right. So I don't know if that helps at all, Tim, but I would just say one of the things I would say is get really clear on when are like the 2 to 3 hours that you are your absolute optimal peak performance mentally, and do your work then. Make sure that every other agreement that you're agreeing to, if you need to renegotiate it, go ahead and do that so that you can be working during that time period. Some people, for me, like I would say for me, it's about 6:30 to about 11 a.m. Are my peak hours. And so I don't really take any phone calls until that time is complete. That's my time to do my work on the computer, writing, even sometimes responding to some clients and things, but that's when I'm doing my absolute peak work period. So I don't know if that helps you, Tim. The other thing I would say is try taking naps. I like Michael's idea. I mean, so anything that you can think of that will naturally allow you to come all the way down will then allow you to come all the way back up. So again, as I was saying earlier, Tim, we all have a wave. Our nervous system goes through a wave throughout the day. And so what's happening is we're starting to go towards a lull. And if we're not allowing that natural lull to happen, we end up trying to boost it back up, and it'll go. But the issue is that it's not sustainable. That's the thing. Because again, our body naturally wants to go down. So if you find that you crash a lot, Tim, or, on the weekend, maybe you just absolutely lose it, even maybe mentally, or there's like a lot of cloudiness or fogginess, that's probably a really key indicator that you need to be allowing your nervous system to deactivate, which includes naps, or even just 10-minute walks in the middle of the day. So that can really help with performance. Because again, you shouldn't ever necessarily be foggy. I don't know if you're experiencing that, Michael, but for me, it's more of just like, okay, I think I'm just actually getting a little tired. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm foggy.
That's what happens for me. I just get tired. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I keep pushing through, that's when the fog starts to come. Or if I start taking caffeine or like drinking a cup of coffee or something, that's usually after that wears off is when I start to get kind of foggy. So I would just say, allow your body to lead the way. Roommate coming through.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to
Hopefully
respect
that's
your
helpful.
time. I know you said you have a call
I
at the
do
end
have a
of the hour.
call. Yeah. Thank you for
Um,
catching that.
so thank you so much for being here, Matt. I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you
Yes.
go.
Hit
And
me.
it's really, well, number one, where can people find you? And then is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would love to share with people in the world?
Oh, that's awesome. You're just so cool, Michael. I'm glad to be your friend. I'm really grateful that I met you, man. Um, yeah, yeah, this is good. I'd say the easiest thing is just reach out to me. We're doing this on Facebook, so I'm very friendly and warm, and I take on 10 clients at a time, and I intentionally do that so that I have time to be in conversations like this, like with you and with Tim. So just reach out to me on Facebook. That's probably the easiest way. If you want to go to my website, you can, but I'd say just shoot me a message. I'm super reachable. And then as far as our conversation today, I would say if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious, the reason that is because there's too much going on right now, right? So the only way to do that is not to try to like boost your way through it with a bunch of, strong arming things to try to get your brain and body to do the things that it's not doing. Use that as a red flag that I need to figure out a way to simplify. And that doesn't mean that you have to like be a minimalist and get rid of all your favorite t-shirts. That could help. But I think the biggest thing is really just taking an inventory of your agreements. What am I agreeing to? And where can I sort of cut the fat here and really create a more streamlined and aligned life?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you again, Matt, for being here. You're amazing. And thank you, everyone who's here on the live. Go ahead and drop a hashtag live. And if you're watching this on the replay, hashtag replay. And if you're feeling saucy, go ahead and hit hashtag agree with Matt. Okay.
That's awesome.
And so thank you all so much for being here. Anyone that's watching, and then Matt as well. I'm going to stop the stream.